All right, welcome to another episode of the Black Swan event special edition. So, we're going to be talking about potential Black Swan events with what's going on with Israel. I hope to tie everything together, and this might take a few videos to do. We'll see, but if you like talking about Black Swan events, the book of Revelation, the rapture, all that kind of good stuff, and especially when it involves the nation of Israel and how that affects end time stuff, all this kind of like, well, we're going to try and put this all together. But if you like this kind of thing, then feel free to subscribe to this channel and feel free to comment, leave a comment, let me know what your thoughts are, let me know where we're watching these videos from, and let's get started. I want to talk about Revelation chapter 8. And this is a familiar scripture verse, but sometimes I think what happens is when you read something familiar, you just kind of overlook it. So I want to dive deep, so deep in this video. So let's just go to Revelation chapter 8. And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about a space of a half an hour. And I saw seven angels which stood before God, and to them were given seven trumpets. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of the saints ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer and filled it with the fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there was voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. And the seven angels which had the seven trumpets prepared themselves to sound. And the first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of the trees was burnt up, and all the green grass was burnt up. And the second angel sounded, as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood, and the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. So that's what I want to hone in on, is verse 9. So Revelation chapter 8, verse 9. And the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. So we're going to talk about a third part of that ships. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to go to my handy dandy whiteboard here. We're going to talk about this, what I think this means. So right now, all eyes are focused on Israel. There's a war obviously going on in Israel, but all eyes are on it. So because this channel is talking about Black Swan events, I always approach things from outside the box. And I think this is why people appreciate this channel, is I don't always just look in one direction. If something's happening over here, I look in another direction and say, what else could potentially be happening? And you may or may not be aware of something like this here. Let me just draw this real quick. So let's just pretend this is the sea. Remember, we just read in the book of Revelation that a third of the ships are being destroyed. 1/3 ships destroyed. For most people, this confuses them. They're like, I don't understand. Was there some kind of a major sea battle? That's part of it. But what I think is going to be happening sooner than later, and perhaps people aren't aware of this, but I'm going to throw out some magical numbers for you. 95% of our internet cables, if you will, everything that we get to our phones, all the information to our phones, websites, all this kind of stuff is underwater. This is called, we'll say this is called the sea. So 95% of our internet comes from sea cables. So we'll call this here sea cables. Not from satellites. This is a fact. So you get a sea cable here, and it goes into the ground, into the water, I should say, and then it goes here. I should actually make this a different color. Let's erase this here. So you get a cable right here from a station, and it goes down here, and it goes under along the seabed, and it goes up to here, and it goes into basically a building right here. So you got a building here. This could be Canada, this could be the US, and this is Europe. So again, 95% of our internet capability comes from underwater sea cables. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, there are between 450 to 500 cables laid side by side underwater. And each one of those cables has a little tiny fiber optic cable inside it. So there's like thousands of these things, but there's like 450 to 500 major cables that are run by major cable companies. And you're going to be asking me, well, what kind of cable companies? Well, one of the big ones is Amazon. I didn't know they're a cable company. Yeah, they have their own ship. And then you have Google. Google has their own ship. And other companies. Those are the big players. They lay thousands of feet of underwater sea cables every year, fixing cables, fixing old ones, all this kind of stuff. So I'm just saying all this stuff so that you're aware that if the next war at sea were to happen, I think it's going to be right here. It's going to be the war for these sea cables, because you got to think about it. If you cut these cables, these countries don't have internet access, and if you're doing an attack, these countries will have no idea what's going on. Same thing over here. If you cut these cables, these people are not going to know what's happening in Europe, and these people in Europe are not going to know what's happening in North America. So that means you need some submarines to monitor the cables and make sure that there's no espionage. Because all it would take is a sub to launch a torpedo and destroy these cables, and we're going back to the Stone Age, basically. That's how easy it is. It's not going to be fought in the air. It's going to be fought in the sea. So when Revelation chapter 8 talks about a third of the ships being toast, I believe it's going to be because of these internet wars, if you will, sea cables. Bet you never thought about that, huh? Right, so let's go here, and let's just look at some footage here real quick. All right, so I'm just going to share this quick video clip here of workers repairing underwater sea cable, just so you can get an idea of what these things look like.
Massive undersea cables are some of the means by which electricity power, telephone calls, and internet connections are transported throughout the world. With approximately 436 submarine cables operating worldwide, stretching over 700,000 miles, undersea cables make instant communications possible, transporting some 95% of the data and voice traffic that crosses international boundaries.
The Canadian government doesn't
All right, so that just gives you, let me just skip this commercial.
want you to have this drone. This $99 intelligent drone is
Modern submarine cables also transport power from the land to offshore installations and platforms. With such importance, it is therefore necessary for repair and rehabilitation work to be done on these cables for optimum performance.
All right. I just want to play little clips here and there, but I wanted to let you guys know that this is a big industry. And for some reason, we have been taught that our cell phone coverage comes from satellites out in space. So then it makes you wonder what is actually out there. Why are we having all these little satellites above us? And I know there's people talking about satellites using blue rays and all this kind of stuff to start all these fires. I'm not going to jump into that. That gets into a little bit of conspiracy theory stuff. But I wanted to show you this because let's go to another screen here for a second here. Hang on one sec. I wanted to show you this. So I think this is important. Get out of this here. I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, so let's just go here. Let's go back to Israel since we're talking about Israel. All right. Got this figured out here. All right. So Israel plans to build an undersea electricity cable linking grids in Europe and the Gulf. So if we look at this, I don't know if I can zoom in. I think that's as far as I can zoom in. You may or may not be able to see this, but in the bottom left-hand corner is the Gaza Strip, and you can see they want internet cables being strung out to Cyprus and then over to Greece to be able to connect with Europe. So this is a big deal. So if you want to cut off communications with Israel to the outside world, this is almost what you have to do with subs, mini subs, whatever it is. It's not going to be just drones bugging Israel. It's going to be these short little one-man, two-man subs. And if you can disconnect these internet cables, you're not going to have an idea of what's going on outside your country. So let me just share this right here. I thought this was kind of interesting as well. This is an article that someone wrote on Naval News. Basically, 5 ways the Russian Navy could target undersea internet cables. So let's just zoom in on this here. So you have basically, they have ships, they have torpedoes, they have cutters, they have things that they can put on dolphins, all kinds of stuff here. So let me just go over to, so in the picture here, I don't know if you can see this very clear, but you have a Russian sub, a couple Russian subs. Then you also have an undersea oil and gas energy infrastructure because a lot of oil and gas gets transported through these pipelines. Internet cables, military communication cables. This is how you can tap in and spy on countries around the world, is you just have to send one of these little cutter subs and they can actually access these military communication cables. So this is why they actually have subs at sea. It's not because they're going to attack land, it's to protect these cables. That's why they're subs. So this article, it says here, let's see, let me just read this a little bit. So Russian seabed warfare capabilities can target underwater infrastructure, including internet communications. Platforms include large host submarines, which deploy deep diving nuclear-powered submersibles, special intelligence ship Yantar, which can deploy remote operated vehicles, ROVs, which is that's the, where is that one? What ship is that? That's number 3, I think. That yellow one. Special intelligence ship Yantar, which can deploy operated vehicles, autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs. Number 3, that's the yellow one. Dual used crew submersibles such as rescue subs, and also trained bulga whales, possibly seal dolphins. So they could put these devices to take out these cables with trained seals, dolphins, or bulga whales. So here's some ways that Russia could target undersea internet cables, especially when it comes to Ukraine as well. Few corners of the submarine world are seen as sneakier than covert operations against undersea communications cables. It is estimated 97% of global communications are transmitted by undersea cables. This includes trillions of dollars of financial transactions, so money. These cables have been described as indispensable but insecure. They are thought to be particularly vulnerable to Russian Navy seabed warfare platforms, and it's not just internet traffic which could be under threat, but energy infrastructure, military communications, and sensor networks. So, yeah, so look at this. So they have subs carrying mother carrying submarines, special mother submarines carrying smaller submarines. Yantar are the best known spy ship. Autonomous, which is an underwater sea cable or underwater vehicle. Dual role submersibles. Normally they're used to rescue, but they could be used for espionage as well. And then these trained bulga whales. Russia's Navy marine mammal program largely escaped notice until a tame bulga whale turned up in Norway 3 years ago. There are, however, already signs of it gaining importance. Marine animals, likely dolphins, were deployed to conflict in Syria, and bulga whale pen was moved from its usual home to a base at Goba, wherever that is. This associates the bulga program, possibly seals, dolphins, with GUGI, although unconfirmed, it's plausible that bulga whales could covertly occur undersea infrastructure. So you'd never see that coming, is my whole point. My whole point is this is the next big battle that's going to be under the sea. While people are focused on Israel, you could almost expect your internet capabilities, your internet connections going a little fuzzy or whatever. Who knows? Because it wouldn't take very much. We are actually more vulnerable than we think. Again, if you've never heard of this before, most people think that we have all our video feeds and everything is through the airwaves, when, as you just saw, between 95 and 97% of all our internet cable communications, our financial data is being transferred from one bank account to another. It's all digital. It all goes under the seawater cables. So all you would need is a terrorist organization like Hamas or someone to be able to go with a little mini 2-man sub and interrupt these cables. So this is going to be a big deal in the future. There's probably this is just not sexy news to talk about this kind of stuff. This is boring news, because usually people are looking at rockets being launched and all this kind of stuff. But if you're talking about where the real war is, I believe it's undersea. And Revelation talks about a third of the ships will be destroyed. So that tells me there's going to be a huge Navy battle. I guess the U.S. has already moved the U.S. A aircraft carrier, I should say, closer. But I think subs are going to be more of a play. So it'll be interesting to just think about that over the next few days, few weeks, as more countries break out in war and stuff. I think this is something that could be quite lucrative for terrorist organizations to try and interrupt our communications, because otherwise we won't know what's going on. So my whole point in this video is to show that we are actually just a little bit more vulnerable than we think. If we can send a balloon, or if a balloon can be sent from China all across the US and we have no idea how to stop it, that should give you a snapshot of how vulnerable we are. It has nothing to do with satellites and all this kind of stuff, communication. If it did, we would know that Hamas was going to invade Israel. We would know that. We would know Russia, all this stuff. But we're not as advanced as we like to pretend that we are when it comes to satellite images and all this kind of stuff. All it is just drone footage of drones actually being able to fly over areas, planes, if perhaps, but planes are harder to go into private airspace to take pictures. So you need drones to do that. It's not from satellites. That's crazy talk. So, anyways, the point is the book of Revelation has a little bit more information than we think. Normally we think, oh, that's just an ancient book. It's 4,000 years old, 2,000 years old. We're talking about the New Testament, and we read it and we're trying to find a verse that's like, oh, what kind of a verse will help me feel good today? Let's go to Psalm 23 and read a couple of verses. And then we close our Bible and we're like, there, that's it for a devotion for today. Thank you, Lord, for giving me eternity. Thank you. See you later. I'm going to go watch a football game. It's Sunday. Man, I'm late. I'm late for a football game. It's countries like that that are going to be caught off guard. And sometimes if you're busy watching the news, you're not going to be paying attention to what's really going on behind the scenes. And there's a lot more moving parts. This is why I created this little video series, is to just make you a little bit more aware that there is a potential black swan event coming. It's just the problem is if you're in it, you won't know it until it's over. And I think one of the biggest black swan events is the rapture. The rapture itself. Why? Because that sparks things going into the rest of the world the moment we get raptured up. That's the Antichrist gets unveiled. It gets revealed, and then all of a sudden there's a one world government and all kinds of stuff. 7 years of tribulation, bad times for the world, the wrath of God, all this stuff, everything all boils down to what's going on right now, most likely in Israel. And again, this could be just a tipping point of what's coming down. And once you get to that tipping point, there's no turning back. That's the whole point of a black swan event. Once it happens, there's no going back. You can't just roll the calendar back and say, oh yeah, that never happened. We just change it. But we could be at that point where once it tips over, our whole world changes almost overnight. We could wake up tomorrow with a new world. Just don't know it. And this is not something to panic about. This is something to realize that it's all been written out before the foundations of the earth. Before the world was created, it was all mapped out. It's all planned out. So you can be part of that plan, as in just believing that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and then you won't be caught unawares. You can look up. So he's coming back one day, and you don't want to be caught off guard. Anyways, if you got something out of this video, let me know. We're going to pack up and we're going back to my daughter's house for a few days. They're coming back from Arizona soon, so I might have to use my phone over the next couple of days to kind of lazy to pack up my computer again. But I might just use my phone and make some quicker videos. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Anyways, hopefully you got something out of this. If you have, feel free to subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you like this kind of content. If you like the direction of this channel where I talk about more of Black Swan events and what's going on around us with news clips and that kind of stuff. If you're interested in that, we could do that. Obviously, I'll still be diving into the Word of God and making videos about some of my favorite books in the Bible: Leviticus, Genesis, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Romans, all that kind of stuff. I'll continue to be doing that, but I think it's important to sometimes just jump up to like 50,000 feet and see what's really going on and have a look around and not just be fixated on a little TV set on our phone, swiping on TikTok and stuff. Maybe there's something else going on as well. Anyways, that's it for this video. I'll see you guys later. And again, don't forget to subscribe and let me know where you're watching these videos from. Bye for now.